When people hear the word marathon, they think of runners, finish lines, and the legendary distance of 2 miles. Not but the true origin of that name lies in a far older story, one written not in sweat alone, but in blood. In the autumn of 490 BC, the armies of Persia arrived on Greek soil. This was the empire of Darius the Great, ruler of the most powerful state on earth, stretching across vast lands and commanding immense armies. Its target was Athens. Its message was clear: submit or be destroyed. Against this imperial invasion stood only around 10,000 Greeks. They were outnumbered, isolated, and facing an enemy whose scale and reputation should have made resistance hopeless. Everything about the battle pointed toward Persian victory. More men, more resources, more reach, more power. But history does not always obey the odds. At Marathon, a force that should have been crushed instead delivered one of the most extraordinary victories of the ancient age. A triumph that echoed far beyond the battlefield and helped shape the future of Greece itself. How did that happen? How did a small Greek army strike down a force that looked unstoppable? To find the answer, we must return to 490 BC, to the field of Marathon. In the autumn of 490 BC, on a coastal plain called Marathon, two worlds were about to collide. On one side stood Persia, the largest and most formidable empire of the ancient world. On the other stood Athens, a small city-state, yet one unwilling to bow. The struggle that followed would be remembered as one of the most legendary battles in history. At that time, Darius had forged Persia into a vast superpower through the conquest of lands, such as Media, Babylon, and Lydia. But even at the height of his triumphs, a spark of resistance rose in the west. Athens had supported the Ionian Greeks in revolt against Persian rule. To Darius, this was not merely a hostile act. It was a challenge that demanded punishment. Before invading, Persia sent envoys to the Greek city-states, demanding earth and water as proof of submission. But the Greeks answered with defiance. Sparta hurled the envoys into a well. Athens put them to death. From that moment, war was no longer a possibility. It was a certainty. Darius gathered ships and troops, preparing to cross the sea and force Athens, and Greece beyond it, into obedience. The Persian force landed at Marathon, a position only about 26 miles or 42 kilometers from Athens. There, the Greeks faced a grim reality. Persia had around 72,000 troops, including large numbers of infantry and cavalry. Athens, joined by its ally Plataea, could gather only about 11,000 men. The disparity was immense. On one side stretched a sea of Persian ranks along the shore. On the other stood a far smaller Greek line, backed against the hills. And yet, history is not always decided by numbers alone. At Marathon, that smaller force was about to create one of the most extraordinary moments of the ancient world. The Persian army that came to Marathon was an instrument of imperial war on a massive scale. It numbered about 72,000 men, roughly 60,000 infantry, and 12,000 cavalry. Its cavalry formed the striking force, while Persian archers softened enemies before the main assault. Their battle method relied on pressure from a distance, followed by fast, coordinated attacks designed to break formation and spread panic. On open terrain, that style was hard to resist. Yet, Persia's strength was not perfect. This was a multinational imperial force, made up of troops from many conquered lands. It was large, but not deeply unified. Many fought for the king, for survival, or for reward, not for a shared homeland. Their lighter weapons and looser formations worked well in mobile warfare, but much less well when forced into dense, close-quarter combat against heavily armored infantry. The Greeks had only around 11,000 men, but their military power lay in quality, not quantity. At the center of their army stood the hoplite, heavily armed infantrymen protected by bronze armor, carrying large shields and long thrusting spears. Their signature formation, the Phalanx, turned individual warriors into a single compact machine. Men stood shoulder to shoulder, shield to shield, creating a hard defensive wall with projecting spear points. Against a frontal assault, the Phalanx could be devastating. It was disciplined, stable, and built for collision. But it had clear limits. It was difficult to redeploy quickly, and if enemy cavalry reached its sides or rear, the formation could be placed in grave danger. Miltiades knew the Greeks could not simply meet Persian strength head-on in open, unrestricted ground. So he used geography as a weapon. Marathon offered a battlefield where the Persian army could land, but not fully deploy in the way it preferred. The surrounding landscape, mountains, rough ground, and marshy areas reduced the freedom of Persian cavalry to maneuver around the Greek line. That mattered more than numbers alone. It had meant the Persians would struggle to outflank the Phalanx and instead be drawn into the kind of frontal engagement that favored the Greeks. Miltiades had chosen ground that turned Persian strengths into partial weaknesses. Once it became clear that part of the Persian cavalry was not in immediate position, Miltiades committed to an attack. But he still faced an enormous problem. His army was far smaller, and to avoid being outflanked, he had to stretch his line wide enough to meet the Persians across the field. So the Greeks expanded their formation to about 1,200 meters. Then came his boldest move. Instead of keeping the line equally strong, Miltiades thinned the center and packed his best troops into the left and right wings. The center would have to endure intense pressure and likely give ground. But if it held long enough, the stronger wings could smash the Persian flanks, then wheel inward and surround the enemy. It was a dangerous gamble, but it was also the key to turning a weaker army into a killing trap. The Battle of Marathon was decided in moments, but those moments were built on nerve, speed, and one brilliantly dangerous plan. On September 13th, 490 B.C., the Greeks drew up in a line about 1,200 meters wide. It was broader than usual, but only 8 ranks deep, and Miltiades had arranged it in a daring way. The center was intentionally thin, while the wings were packed with stronger troops. Across the field, the Persians looked ready for what they assumed would be a straightforward victory. Their army was larger, their archers were positioned to open the battle, and the Greeks seemed stretched thin enough to break. Then the unexpected happened. At the Greek signal, the whole line surged forward at a run. Not a march, a sprint. The Athenians raced across the killing ground before the Persian archers could fully exploit the distance. The tactic was shocking in itself. Heavy infantry was not expected to charge at such speed over open ground, but the Greeks did exactly that. By the time the Persians reacted, the battle had already become a brutal clash at close quarters. The fight was uneven across the line. On the flanks, the Greek hoplites drove into the enemy with enormous force, their armor, shields, and long spears giving them the advantage in direct combat. But in the center, the weaker Greek formation bent backward under Persian pressure. The Persians pushed into that retreating middle with confidence, believing they had split the Greek army in two and were on the verge of total victory. That confidence destroyed them. At the moment the Persians were deepest in the opening, the Greek wings turned inward. The strongest Athenian units struck both exposed Persian flanks at once, while the center regained its footing and attacked forward again. What the Persians had thought was an opening was really a snare. In an instant, they were trapped inside a tightening Greek pincer. The result was catastrophic. The Persian line lost cohesion, then collapsed. Their short weapons and looser formation could not withstand the pressure of Greek heavy infantry fighting in disciplined blocks. Panic spread through the army. Men broke ranks and ran for the beach, trampling one another in the desperate rush back to the ships. The Greeks chased them as far as they could, but Miltiades eventually ordered the pursuit to stop after roughly 1,500 meters, so the line could reform. Even so, enough Athenians reached the shore to kill more fugitives and set fire to 7 Persian warships. The final numbers told the story: around 6,400 Persian dead, against only about 200 Greeks, including the fallen Callimachus. It was one of the most extraordinary upsets in military history. A battle where discipline, terrain, and timing destroyed an army that had seemed impossible to stop. Racing the news home, the battle was won. But the crisis was not yet finished. Athens needed to know, immediately, that the Persians had been defeated. Every hour mattered. In that moment, a messenger soldier named Phalanx was sent from the plain of Marathon back to the city. His mission was not to celebrate victory, but to outrun fear itself. Victory at the cost of life. Across nearly 42 kilometers of rough country, Phalanx ran without pause. He ran through exhaustion, through pain, through the breaking point of the human body. And when he finally reached Athens, he is said to have uttered one final message: Greece has triumphed. Then he collapsed and died. It is one of the most haunting images in all of ancient history. A victory so great that its announcement had to be carried by a dying man. The enduring spirit of the marathon, the world has never forgotten that run. Over the centuries, the story of Phalanx became a lasting emblem of endurance, sacrifice, and service to one's homeland. In the modern era, that memory gave rise to the marathon race. The distance of 195 kilometers, now recognized across the globe, is more than a test of athletic endurance. It is a living tribute to one of history's most powerful legends. A reminder that some journeys become immortal because of what they demanded and what they represented. The larger meaning of marathon, the Battle of Marathon itself, remains one of the great turning points of the ancient world. Through tactical brilliance, disciplined courage, and the smart use of terrain, Miltiades achieved more than a battlefield success. He preserved the independence of Greece and shattered the illusion that Persian power could not be resisted. Marathon was not merely a Greek victory. It was a signal to the world that empire could be challenged and that freedom, even when badly outnumbered, could still prevail. A victory, not ending the Battle of Marathon, was one of the great victories of the ancient age, but it was only the beginning of something larger. Persia had been repelled, not broken. The empire would return, and when it did, it would come back with greater force than ever before. Not long after the defeat, Darius I died, and the throne passed to Xerxes I, who inherited both the empire and the unfinished war against Greece. Under Xerxes, the Persians would launch a second invasion so vast that it would shake the entire Greek world and produce some of the most legendary battles in history. The immortal name of Marathon. What makes Marathon so remarkable is not only that the Greeks won, but what that victory meant. It was the first great crack in the image of Persian invincibility. It proved that a disciplined citizen army, led with brilliance and fighting on chosen ground, could defeat a larger imperial force. Miltiades did not just defend Athens. He helped preserve the independence, confidence, and future of Greece itself. And beyond the battlefield, Marathon became something even greater. Its memory outlived kings and empires, eventually becoming a symbol recognized across the world. The spirit of endurance, sacrifice, and the determination to keep moving forward, no matter the cost. What do you think mattered most at Marathon? Leadership, tactics, discipline, or courage? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another journey into the past. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next battle.